we're just getting started.
Hi, Jesse. Thanks for coming on. Jesse is the CEO of Nave Analytics. Kind of give me a rundown of what is Nave Analytics.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So Nave Analytics is planting and irrigation decision support for when sensors don't make sense. So what I mean by that is that we focus on row crop or broadacre production, and we're providing remotely sensed soil moisture information and a bunch of other analytics and pieces of data that can help make better planting decisions and better irrigation decisions throughout the growing season.
Right. And when you say when sensors don't make sense, what do you mean by that?
Yes. So because we're using satellite data, we don't actually have to have hardware in the field. And so what we mean by that is usually row crop, broadacre production, your margins are just tighter. There's not as much room in the budget for those more expensive solutions, having sensors out there, all that stuff. So by using the remote sensing, we're able to provide a cost-effective solution that's really scalable and is giving you data all the way across the field boundary, every pixel in that field boundary, versus only the spots where sensors are installed.
Right. And I mean, when I think about it, like growing up, we didn't really have the soil probes that we do like today, but also you're only capturing a snapshot of the field, and the satellite kind of alleviates that, right?
Yeah, so we can work with or without sensors. So if there is a sensor in a field, we can actually use that as another piece of data going into the modeling, but we don't have to have it. So maybe you have sensors out on your highest productivity fields, but then you have fields, down the road that aren't as productive. You don't, invest in putting sensors out there. We can provide the same amount of data across both boundaries, right? Like we don't have to have quite the restrictions as sensors do.
So the satellite, how is that kind of like how is it capturing how much rainfall or how much moisture's in the soil?
Yeah, so we're actually bringing in several pieces of data that feed into our modeling. So the satellite data is a piece of it. We're looking at two different kinds of satellite data. One of them is looking at soil moisture in the very top of the profile. The other one is actually looking at leaf area index, so what the crop is doing above ground. So we're getting kind of a measurement of below ground and above ground. Then we're adding in the crop modeling, the hydrology modeling to kind of boost up those pieces of data. We're also bringing in weather data, so that's where the rainfall comes from. Information about soil texture, as well as throughout the growing season, we do need feedback about how much water is being applied through irrigation. All of those pieces go into the crop modeling, the hydrology modeling, and that's where we're able to get our output.
Nice. So how much of the information for a farmer is needed right at the beginning then?
Yeah, so another beautiful piece of our platform is that it is really simple to get going. We need to know where the field's at, so we can either draw a field boundary or upload a field boundary if you have the shapefile. We need to know what crop is planted there, when it was planted, and then we have it optional, but it's helpful to know the maturity of the crop. So I don't need to know specific hybrid or variety, but like, is it 110 day or is it 115 day?
Right.
That helps kind of tune in the models a little bit more. So that's really the basic information we need to get a field enrolled. We start producing data, and then like I mentioned, throughout the season, we can either get connected to telemetry on the pivot, so kind of reading what the pivot is doing throughout the season, or we have manual entry. I know nobody likes manual entry, but it's there, where you can put how much water is being applied through irrigation.
Nice. So like you're not necessarily making the farmer have just another thing that they have to input things into unless they have to do the manual irrigation scheduling or how much water they are trying to apply, right?
Yep. So it's 5 minutes to set up a field in the spring, and then if we can get connected to your AgSense or the FieldNet or whatever system you have where we're reading kind of what that pivot is doing, then throughout the season, you're just looking at new information every day. Like you don't have to do scouting notes. You don't have to do measurements or, leaf testing or, anything like that. You're not having to do anything throughout the season.
Right. is there an option for people to do that? I know some people are diehard and they want that information everywhere. So whenever they pull up any application or any service that they use, that they can put it in there. Is that an option, or is that?
So we don't necessarily in our platform. I will say that we are working on getting into some other existing platforms. Okay. So kind of, the way that we want to take this company is that we understand there's already a ton of different platforms to go look at pieces of data. If we can get our pieces of data into a place you're already going to look at, like, perfect. I don't need to be another password for you to remember if we can get into some other places. So that's where we're going with the company. We're working on those conversations right now, trying to get into some other platforms. Until then, we do have our web platform that can go and look at pieces of data, but we're really focused on the data prior to planting, and then the data around irrigation throughout the season. We don't do a lot around like scouting notes and things like that. There's already other places for that.
Right. But you are looking into integration with those existing platforms. That's awesome, though.
Yep.
Just because, like you said, there are tons of different places where people can be looking, and it feels so disconjointed right now.
Yes.
But I feel like it is kind of merging, and stuff is becoming more and more integrated.
Yeah. Yes. I've been in the digital ag space for a while now. And yes, for a while it felt like everybody needed to have their own little space and only their stuff could be in it. And from our perspective, like, irrigation is a small piece of the whole picture of crop production. So like, why do I need to make you go log in somewhere else to look at this small piece if our data can just be somewhere you're already going to?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I'm just picturing my dad trying to go through and cipher things and whatnot. So I can, if we can get it all in one place, it makes the most sense. Yeah. You touched briefly, but you have over a decade experience within small plot and digital ag.
Yep.
So kind of what is your background?
Yeah. Going back, I did not think I was going to be in ag, but ag pulled me right back in. I was going to be an eye doctor. So my undergrad is human biology. But shortly after graduation, started getting back into the ag space, working at a research farm. I went back and did most of a master's of agronomy. So my background is agronomy. Turns out my career took off, and didn't
Funny
finish,
how things like that work.
Right? Didn't finish writing that thesis. But agronomy trained, and then I've been doing kind of small plot ag research. I've experience in other startup. I was an early employee at another startup. So I grew up in Minnesota, where we tile fields and get water off of fields.
Right.
So when I moved out to Nebraska and started working in ag, I was kind of like, so you grow corn and sand, and then you have to water it all season. This doesn't make sense to me.
Just a little
bit different, right? Ag practices. So I became pretty fascinated with irrigation management, and how we do that more efficiently. I was always, why are we watering this gravel road and things like that, where like we need irrigated agriculture, but I think that there's a lot of room for us to do it better. And so my career has really been primarily focused on irrigation management. How do we have better information about what the crop needs? How do we have better machines to put out water more accurately and things like that? So have stayed in the digital space. I've worked with different platforms in doing research to either build the models or now as a founder doing all of the things and having to build the platform and the company and find the customers and all the things that go along with being a startup founder.
Yeah, it's you're wearing multiple hats. It's not just the one thing anymore, right?
There's a lot of hats.
What were you doing for your small plot when you were working with that? Like, was there a focus for that?
Yeah. So I worked at the then Monsanto, now Bayer, Learning Center in Gothenburg.
Oh,
so
nice.
There we were focused on a lot of agronomic practices. It was a lot of like hybrid testing and things like that as well to support the greater business. But that was kind of my first taste at looking at variable rate irrigation, and the rainout shelter is an awesome resource out there, and understanding just how much water it takes to grow a crop of corn. And So, I think I have research experience kind of all over the board. We were doing, anything from population to nitrogen to irrigation, all the types of studies. And then worked at another startup that was doing irrigation management. That one got acquired by FieldView. So then I spent 6 years being a field product specialist at FieldView.
Oh, nice.
So that's where I got out a small plot, but still research. So there I was taking trials that the science department would come up with to collect data to build that they needed to build models. I would go out and find cooperators to do those trials and then make sure that they got done correctly. So that was a lot of population and fungicide and irrigation again, and but larger scale, whole field scale. At that
Right,
point.
but you weren't necessarily just only focused on irrigation the entire time.
That was where my heart was, but I did have to do all of the other stuff as well.
I
Yes.
understand that. I worked at a research farm, the South Central Ag Lab, so that's combined with the university. They have a ag lab near Clay Center.
Yep.
And I was on the entomology crew, and I hated bugs before that. I still do.
Yep.
Not the greatest thing when you have to go dump a bucket of
Bunch of
bugs
bug
and
traps.
figure it out and then count out how many things are there. Wasn't great.
Yeah,
But
the
like
fun sides of ag research.
you really like when I was there for 2 summers as an intern, and you really get exposed to a broad scope of different things that are going on and all
Yeah.
the different testing, and you kind of you're able to get your feet wet in so many different facets, and that's probably a great experience for you to draw
Yes.
on today.
Yes, I think it really kind of formulated how I feel about precision ag, because there are so many things that can be tweaked, right? There's, I can't remember the exact number, but there's some, thing out there that's like you make 140 decisions, or I can't remember the exact number, in a growing season, and it, everything down from the hybrid you plant, the date that you plant it, like your planter, all the way through. There's so many things that can be tweaked and changed, and like, how do we make this whole system come together? Like one individual decision, except for maybe a couple, is not going to make or break your crop for the season. And that's like where my kind of philosophy around irrigation management came from, is like, it's not an all or none, right? Like it has to be iterative. We have to change it every time we make a circle. Like, okay, let's reevaluate and decide what is the next best decision, right? And so it's not something that we can just set and forget. And it's not the end of the world if we don't get last week's recommendation applied. Like, we can still overcome and get back on track this week or whatever. So there's just so much tweaking that goes on.
Right, and typically when there's time to tweak, they always happen, and there's a time frame. It's not that you have this to do that hour. So
Yep.
you're typically getting about 3 days to a week for especially irrigation, correct?
Yep.
So that you're giving them the opportunity to make those tweaks within that week.
And that's the beauty about irrigation compared to a lot of the other decisions that you make, right? Like, you make a planting decision and then you're done, and that's what you have to live with for the season. Where with the irrigation, it's iterative. Every time we make that circle, we can make an adjustment and continue to, feed off of what the crop is telling us to make the next decision. So it can be something that you can really influence throughout the season.
Yeah. So irrigation is what you've liked to focus on. It's your bread and butter per se. So take me through what it looks like as a farmer if I'm adopting Nave. How does that look for me and my irrigation protocols per se? I don't have a good word for it, but
Schema?
yeah.
Yeah. So, I've worked with several different irrigation tools and have, done research going down different paths in the past. And all of that kind of formulated what we wanted to build with Nave. My founding group and I have been in the space and working with different products. And even the previous startup that I worked at I kind of refer to it as like the grandfather of Nave. So it's been a learning process for the last 10 years getting to what Nave actually is. So we call ourselves decision support. So we're not going to be providing weekly recommendations. We're not going to say like, you need to apply 1.5 inches this week. But what we do is provide all of the background information to make that decision based on everything that you know about that field and that pivot and, the exact way that field needs to be irrigated. I'm measuring stuff from the sky and modeling. There's a lot of stuff on the ground that I can't know. And so that's where that kind of last piece of looking at the information that we're providing and then making the decision is up to the agronomist or the farmer. So we're going to provide current soil moisture status across the entire field, current crop water use, so you can know how much your crop is using at that point in time, things like leaching potential or drought potential. Is there areas of the field that are too wet or are there areas that are too dry? And so we're giving both field average as well as the spatial variability. So is there areas of the field that should be treated differently? So providing all of that information in, daily updated, so fresh whenever you go to make that decision so that you can take that last step of, I know I'm going to be on load control on Wednesday, so I'm going to start today. Or I know if I run that pivot for more than 1/2 inch, it's going to get stuck at the bottom of the hill. Like all of those things are things that I don't know. And so I'm going to leave that final recommendation up to the irrigation manager, but I'm going to provide all of the information that is necessary to feel confident that we're applying water only when the crop needs it. We're maintaining space in the soil profile to take advantage of rainfall when we do receive it, but we're not going to get to a point where it's too dry and we're causing problems. It's a balancing act.
Right. And it's something that, your typical farmer, they have been in the field, they know what has done on like a historical basis. When you guys are going out and building your models as well, how much are you pulling from historical data then?
Yeah. So the models are built, based on soil texture. Crop models are, that's where we come in with the maturity to kind of tune in the crop model, but it's specific to, the crop that you're growing, the weather that field is receiving in that year. The satellite is giving us information about how much water that crop is using. So the satellite really helps tune in that crop model to what's actually happening on that field. So it's not just like a basic try to fit everything crop model. Right. And then the same with the soil moisture. The satellite data is giving us kind of that check for the hydrology modeling. So I would say that it is, what a lot of other services do is kind of standard modeling, but then we're using the other data points to calibrate it to that specific field and that specific growing season.
How does this integrate into like a farmer's typical day-to-day?
Yeah. So I would say that you don't have to change a whole lot other than building in the 15 or 20 minutes to go through the platform, look at the current status of that field to make that decision. We are a pretty data heavy platform. Just the nature of what we do is producing data, right? So a lot of times we are working with agronomists more so than the actual farmer. I know there's farmers out there that like to dig into the data, but not everybody, right?
Right. And there's farmers that are agronomists themselves. So.
Right. Yes. So whoever likes to kind of actually look at the data. But we recommend, sitting down, running through it quick on a computer versus field side because the data heavy piece of it. But we make that easy. We have color coding in there. We bring your attention to the fields that probably, need attention paid to. But run through the data, in the morning before you head out or whatever, make your decisions and then go about your business irrigating your fields. It should not change your practices. You don't have to install a bunch of new equipment. You don't have to change the way you're doing things. Just use our data to inform the decisions you're already making.
And right now we're gearing up for planting. I know a lot of people are getting their planters ready. They're just waiting for that right time. And so Nave Plant, is that how it's called?
Yep.
Correct? So
Yep.
how does Nave Plant work then?
Yeah. So I am still getting used to talking about Nave Plant. Nave Analytics was built around irrigation management, and that was our kind of flagship Nave Grow product. But now we have taken that base technology and translated it to planting decisions. So the story behind this product is kind of funny. So as we were kind of starting the company, it wasn't even really a thing yet. It wasn't commercial. My dad called me one day. He was like, "Hey," I'm from Minnesota, so my dad, is farming in Minnesota. He goes, "Hey, with that new company that you're doing, do you think you could tell me where I'm going to get the tractor stuck next to the slough?" I was like, probably. It's new technology, so like we can do a lot of new things with it. We just hadn't built it out. So we actually took that phone call and built the product. So now we have Nave Plant. It takes the kind of base technology of looking at soil moisture. So we're actually only looking at some soil moisture below ground, where in season we're looking at below and above ground, right? So we're looking at the field conditions leading up to planting. So it is forecasted out for 2 weeks. It's giving information about current seed zone soil moisture. So we do seed zone as well as profile. So, what kind of moisture are we planting that seed into, but also what kind of moisture are we starting the season with? And this is something that can be used outside of irrigated acres, right? Everybody plants. So if we're planting into a rain-fed or a dryland situation, are we starting with a good enough soil profile to plant corn, or do we need to maybe default to a less water-intense crop or things like that? Forecasting out for 2 weeks, giving ideal planting windows, trying to identify when is the best window to actually get that field planted. Is it too wet that you're going to cause compaction or other issues getting out there? Is it too dry to where that seed's just going to sit there and not actually germinate? So giving you kind of that information to help inform the planting decisions.
Yeah, giving them information that they like you said, are they going to compact it? How does that look? Like, is it basically giving you an alert saying if you go out today, you're going?
Yep. So we have kind of like a color code where green is your best days, down to red is like we don't recommend going out on that day. So yeah, trying to make it easy, color code. We've made a lot of the graphics look very similar to our in-season product. So if you're using one, the other one makes a lot of sense. It's not a whole new learning curve.
Right.
Try to make those kind of flow together.
So I know here in, recent history is the access to satellite data and the access for individuals like yourself and Nave to be able to access the satellite data at, I wouldn't say necessarily a reasonable price, but it's come down significantly. Yep. How has that impacted you guys? In the last 5-10 years here? Yeah.
So new remote sensing technology and easier access and all that stuff is what makes Nave possible today, where it wouldn't have been possible probably even 3 years ago. The technology was just coming out when we started the company. Kind of why we started the company was this new satellite data. So the satellite data that we're using publicly out there, so it's Planet Labs, it's their planetary variables, their soil, water, and their biomass proxy. These new variables are microwave data, so they're not interfered with by clouds, atmospheric haze. We don't lose images to shadows. When Canada's on fire, it's not messing up our imagery. And then it is a variable, so it's taking information from a whole constellation of satellites, not just a couple. So it is actually getting data every day. So us being able to actually have the data from the satellite every day is what makes this possible, where it wasn't in the past. We, even the previous startup that I operated at, we were, it was a combination of satellite data and modeling, but the gaps between the images made it hard for the modeling to hold up. And so when we were going 7 or 14 days without an image, it wasn't working as well. Now we have satellite data every day. The models don't have to try to hold up in between data. So the technology that is available today is what has made it possible to start the company. And then I'm very lucky to have a co-founder who's a PhD geospatial scientist. Like, he knows how to do all the things with satellite data. And so we have been working with Planet for a while, even back to our previous endeavors. And so we had the relationship to start with. So we just go direct to them. We buy our data straight from them. It is still our biggest input cost, but it is getting to the point where we order per field. We don't have to order a big AOI, a big area of interest, and then try to fill fields in that space anymore.
Right.
Like, that's what was another thing that was pretty limited before, was like you bought this giant swath of data and then you had to try to find fields within that. We're not limited to that anymore. We buy the data per the field, and so we're able to be pretty efficient with the data that we do purchase.
Is there a certain amount of land that you have to, like, is there a bare minimum or is there a maximum? Kind of like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, so the contracting with Planet is a whole thing. So the way our contracts are set up is that we set a minimum, and then we have to kind of hit that minimum. We try to do our best guess at how many acres we're going to have enrolled. That's super, super hard as a startup, because
it's hard and stressful. I bet.
You have this whole pipeline of potential customers, but what's actually going to come through, and you feel super good about all of these, but not so much about these, and then half of those go through, but half of those don't. Like, trying to figure out, forecast how many acres we're going to have at this point is super hard, just because we're in those very, very early stages. That will level out as, we grow and our growth becomes more stable. But that is probably one of the hardest things that we do right now, is figuring out how many acres we're going to have in a season and how much imagery to contract and things like that. Planet has been good partners for us. They see the potential in what we're doing. We're taking one of their raw data streams and making it more valuable. So they've actually brought customers to us. They see it as a way to sell more data, right? So they've been a really good partner in all of this. And as we grow, that will get easier. As we scale, we have more negotiating power and all that stuff.
Right. I mean, Nave started in 21 or
we
earlier?
founded in 21. Okay. Yep.
So, I mean, you've been at this for 4 years now. Kind of what's changed in the ag tech space in that time? I mean, it's constantly shifting, constantly changing, but kind of how has that looked for the last 4 years?
Yeah. So we founded the company in 21. We started working on kind of the back end technology. We didn't actually go full time working on the company until 2023. So it's a little bit. It feels like forever and also a moment at the same time. So I would say in ag tech, we get really hot on an idea, right? Like, all the money is going to one thing, and then all the money is going to another thing. So in that time frame, we have seen a lot of investing dollars go to certain things, and that is shifting. So we're watching that and looking at, like, okay, where is the interest going? I think that we haven't been one of those hot things, and I feel good about that, because we're not just a trend. It's a technology that has shelf life. It's in ag, the markets determine a lot, right? Like, if the markets are tight, then it's going to be a lot harder to get farmers to adopt a new technology. So if you can launch a company in like a hot commodity year, then you're golden. We did not. We launched last year and this year, and that's when it's been getting tight again. So I think just understanding your customer and their economics is really, really important when you're starting a company. Because, like, if I went out with a high-priced solution, like, that's not going to sell this year. So I feel good that we are a cost-effective solution, and that we can maybe kind of weather through some of those market swings.
Yeah, and you brought up farmer adoption. It's one of those things, I mean, we talked about it a little bit ago, but it's one of those things where I feel like farmers have been kind of berated with all these different things that either are on the market for a year and then they're gone and then they're just gone forever, or it's something that hasn't necessarily been grabbed onto. How have you guys kind of been attacking getting that adoption?
Yeah. In ag tech, like we are our own worst enemies. The founders of the past have not maybe done the best for ag tech. When the industry started, I think that we had a lot of people trying to solve problems they didn't understand. Maybe they didn't come from agriculture. Maybe they came from tech and decided like, ooh, there's probably application for this in agriculture. Let's try to figure it out. And so I think U.S. farmers, and I'll qualify U.S. farmers, and I'll get to that. U.S. farmers are kind of burned out on trying new tech, right? Because like you mentioned, there was this whole 5-10 years of new companies popping up every year. They were maybe around for a year or two. They ran out of funding and then they're gone. And so understandably so, farmers are hesitant to try new technology now. We don't see that so much other places around the world, where maybe the ag tech industry hasn't been around for so long, or there hasn't been as much investment in ag tech. So, we see farmers other places around the world are very open to new technologies because they haven't had to be burned by the first round of U.S. ag tech. So I get that. But on the flip side, I think that ag tech has gotten to a place where we have founders starting companies that have either, come from ag. They're farm kids that have gone and got an engineering degree and now are doing really cool things. Or like my founding group, we were in the industry for 10 years. We went through these other processes and all this other research to get to the point of starting Nave. So we have tried other things before, and we understand where we're coming at and why we're setting the company up the way that we are. We come with the industry experience. So I guess I encourage farmers out there to ask questions about the founding group. Ask questions about their spend. Are they investor backed? Are they VC backed? How are they spending money? What's their runway? That's all questions that are on the table. And right. You can ask questions to understand if they are being responsible, if they're going to be here in 2 years, if the founders know what they're doing, or they're trying to, figure out how to make a solution from a different space fit into ag. Understand that, but then give us a chance. There's a lot of founders out there now that are coming out of the space. I think that we are in kind of a new generation of ag tech. I've heard we're either 2.0 or 3.0, depending on who you're talking to. But the companies that are out there, I think, are much stronger companies that are really solving actual problems.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I've seen a lot of individuals that either I grew up with or people that I went to college with, but I know their background. Yep. And they're reaching out and they're starting things on the side. That's not their main focus, yep. Of course, to start. But it's really getting that background that they can pull off of, because somebody that's coming from Silicon Valley out in San Francisco who yep. hasn't left the concrete out there, they yep. don't necessarily understand what it is like on the farm. Yep. And I that's one thing that I appreciate about you guys, is that you do have that experience. You guys yep. were working within the industry for 10 years. You have yep. that it's hard to describe. I mean, you have the common sense almost. Yeah. It's not common sense to everybody, but to somebody that's been in the industry, it's yes, that is common sense, but somebody yeah. that's outside doesn't necessarily understand it. Yeah.
And not to totally write off anybody that didn't come from an ag background or doesn't, as long as they've done the effort to understand the industry, understand their customers, actually get out and walk through a field and see, the types of equipment that we're using in row crop production and different things like that. If they've done the work, then certainly don't write them off. But if they're trying to build something and haven't been out to see a field, that's a red flag.
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of different things that have been built, but the ones that I see that are being successful in farm are the people that aren't just in the cubicle, that actually have, and like you said, like if they have the experience getting out and seeing it happen, they can learn a lot. And it's very impressive when somebody that's not from the industry can come in, learn, and then they have a completely different view, but they need to get out there and see it first.
Outside perspective can be good, but you have to understand the industry as well.
So you said that we're ag tech 3.0.
Yeah.
What was 1.0 or 2.0?
Yeah. 1.0 was founders not in the industry trying to find a problem for a solution. We went through that. Those were those companies that were, a year or two and poof, they were gone. 2.0 was probably, I would say that we've gone through some fads where it was investor led. So there's been some ag tech that has had a lot of money dumped into it that maybe wasn't so much problems that farmers really wanted, but problems that investors wanted farmers to want. And now I think we're through that. And now, the VC market has changed. There was a giant bubble that popped across the investing market in 2022. And so now investor dollars are just harder to come by. We have to be so much more practical with the money that we're spending. I am seeing that in capital intensive companies are it's going to be tough. So like robotics is big, but that takes a lot of money to get to a product. So I think that we'll start seeing some more cost-effective, companies, things that are able to stand up quickly. We'll see the development process speed up now with AI and different tools that are available. You can build technology much faster and cheaper. So I think 3 is just a more efficient ag tech.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, when I think about robotics, it's the manufacturing and then just trying to, between testing, between manufacturing and, it's finding the right people and then the delays. And, that's something that you guys aren't necessarily dealing with, right?
Yeah. We don't have to deal with, supply chain, manufacturing, like anything like that. We're nature of what we're doing. We're just a low cost, our satellite data and our labor costs is our biggest expenses. And so we're able to move pretty quickly. We were able to develop pretty quickly, pretty efficiently. And that goes for quite a few different, digital solutions. Depends on if they have a hardware component too. If the hardware component is the lead, then those tend to be more capital intensive.
Right. So where do you guys see yourself in about 5 years? You're kind of at this point, and in my mind anyways, I've been following since 2021 when we first met. But you guys are kind of at this point, getting out into the market and really making a push. So where do you guys see in the next 1, 5, 10?
Yeah. So right now we're in our second commercial year, just starting our second commercial season. Looking for growth from last year. I kind of mentioned it at the beginning. Right now we're operating primarily like with our web platform, but we want to get into other platforms, have other companies build off of our data streams. Just from like the startup mindset, it is very hard for me to scale going direct to every farmer, every agronomist individually. I'd have to have a whole sales force and all of that stuff that just doesn't scale well. And that goes back to like the being frugal with your investor dollars. And so we want to be able to get into other platforms, have other companies building off of our data. They're just more scalable. We envision ourselves as a global company. Just the nature of how we built all of our data inputs are global data inputs, so I can produce data in any field around the globe today. We already operate in like 7 different countries or so. So I envision us growing globally. So we're biggest in the U.S. right now, but I think we'll have a pretty big presence in Brazil, Argentina, Australia. Europe is getting in there, Canada to a point. So I think we will be a global company. I think we will be more of a Intel to the Dell, right? Our data is going to be into other platforms that you're already going to. So you don't have to go to a separate login, but doesn't bother me if you're still looking at my data. So I would expect us to be integrated into other solutions, global company, scaling up. I think we have a whole R&D pipeline too. So right. Nave Analytics is very ambiguous for a reason. So I can see us in some different, always with like the remote sensing through line, but I can see us in a little bit different spaces, developing some more products into some different crops and things like that as well.
So let's shift from a global mindset and back to Nebraska. I mean, not all the founders live here in Nebraska, correct?
Right.
But you guys have worked here in Nebraska, done testing in Nebraska.
Yep.
How has being here in Nebraska kind of been impactful to you guys?
Yeah. Being here in Nebraska has been huge. So when we were starting the company, I was in central Nebraska, and then my other 2 co-founders were in St. Louis. And so we were kind of looking, St. Louis, also a pretty good spot to start an ag tech startup. Looking at the 2 different places, where do we start a company? Our flagship product is irrigation management. Made a lot of sense to be in Nebraska, right? So from the practicality standpoint, that made sense to be here. I already had a network of folks that I knew and could go to, and for testing and different things like that. So that made a lot of sense. But then we soon came across all of the other resources that are available for startups here in Nebraska. So you've mentioned the Combine a couple of times. We got involved with the Combine right away. So that's an ag tech incubator funded by Invest Nebraska here that helps very early stage founders try to, through the messy part of a startup, trying to figure out what your company is going to be, do your customer outreach and all of your customer interviews, and set up the entity and all of the nitty gritty of starting a company. So we were able to work through a lot of that with the help of the Combine team, which was awesome. And then the other resources that are available for startup companies, things like the prototype grant. We were able to utilize the prototype grant to build both of our products. And Invest Nebraska is one of our major investors to this point. And so there were just a lot of other resources and network, as well as financial benefits to being here in Nebraska.
The investor side has always piqued my interest. I mean, I grew up watching Shark Tank. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, that's really cool. Oh, that's what a company's worth. Oh, how do they get there? But what is that process like for an ag tech startup? I know we mentioned that there was a bubble, it popped, it's gone. But now it's less about money being thrown everywhere, and it seems like they're kind of narrowing it down and being very specific about where dollars are going to.
Yes, I have a love-hate relationship with Shark Tank. I think it's great because people get a little bit of exposure to that side of the industry, but it is also not how it actually happens.
Right.
You'll notice all of the companies on Shark Tank are like consumer goods. So that's not necessarily how an ag tech company gets funding.
I imagine it doesn't just take 5 minutes, right?
Oh, God, I wish it did. No, there is so many meetings. There's so much back and forth. So ag tech is one of the trickier industries for investing, I think, because we are, the agriculture industry is like 1% of the population. So there's very few people that actually understands the industry and how to build a company for that industry. So ag tech companies generally have slower growth, longer life cycles. It takes us longer to build. And so most investors don't understand that. They want faster growth. They want an exit within a few years, where ag tech companies are usually looking at like a 7 to 10 year lifespan. So working with investors that understand the industry has been super important for us. So we really focus on talking to investors that are either ag tech specific or Midwest. We think that Midwest investors at least understand. If they're not directly involved in agriculture, at least they've seen a field.
Right. They might not have the background, but they have the surroundings for them.
Yes. So we really focus on working with investors that are going to understand our company, are not going to try to push us in a direction because they don't understand the industry that we're working in. So that's really been our mindset. To this point, we're fully Nebraska funded. We haven't had investor money from outside of Nebraska. That will change here as we're kind of embarking on our seed round investment. We'll have to go outside of the state for that. There's just not too many investors here in Nebraska. Right. But we intend to continue to stay focused on Midwest investors, or at least folks that understand our industry.
Yeah, I think having that background, or at least the understanding of the industry, is huge. It also gives you guys more of a runway.
Yes.
For sure, because if you don't understand what you guys are working on, or if they don't have an understanding of the industry as a whole, their metrics of analyzing their investment are going to be completely different. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's in VC, like the investor path is one way to build a company. Certainly, bootstrapping is another way, and there's other ways to you can fully debt finance it and different things like that. We went the investor route because it gave us the opportunity to give us enough time to build the technology, make sure that it was solid before we had it out trying to sell it. If you're trying to bootstrap and you're trying to sell too fast, that's how you can sometimes get into a product that's not fully baked and trying to get out there and sell too soon. But at the end of the day, all that costs money. I still have a mortgage to pay, all that stuff. So we need the funding, but like we have been, our mindset is to be very responsible with our investment, like take on as little as possible so that we as founders maintain as much control of the company as we can, so that we can, direct the future that we want for Nave. But at the end of the day, like we need to get the money somewhere.
Right. But when you guys got funding, you were you still a different job and you're kind of split focus, or were you able to kind of dive all focus in before you got the funding?
The investment funding was what allowed us to go full time into the company. So before that, we were split focused, doing some contract work and some different things and trying to kind of have it be a side hustle. There's only so much that you can do that route, and we knew that. We had the technology built. It was at a point where we needed to be full-time, full focus on it. So that's when we decided to take on our first round of investment money. It allowed us to go full-time, fully focus on the company, and get it out to market.
And what does 2025 look like for you? So, there's, like we said, there's planting coming up. It's going to be a different year. There's a lot of uncertainty within the ag space as a whole. But what's 2025 look like?
Yeah. So we are, as we're talking here, April 1st. I don't know when you're going to release this, but we are going to be live with the Nave plant this week. So we have it as a beta this year, so it is. We're giving it for free for anybody that signs up for the in-season tool. But that will be live and going here in this week. Right now, I'm focused on sales, so trying to get as many customers signed up as we can. Another side, beautiful side of ag tech is that our sales cycles are very cyclical based on the seasons. Another thing investors don't like about ag tech companies. So we have to be fully focused on sales right now. But we will, after we get into the season, back to we're raising our seed round. So the joys of fundraising. Looking at developing some other markets. So I would say by the end of 2025, I'm hopeful that we have a presence in Brazil and Argentina, as well as Australia and Canada for the most part, and then a few other trials or pilots in a couple different places, but really starting to establish a market elsewhere around the world. So continue to grow and build, hopefully grow the team by the end of the year. So we're still just our 3 founders and a part-time employee. So hopefully have probably 2 more full-time employees by the end of the year. So hopefully 2025 is a big year for us.
Nice. So one of the benefits of working with satellite data and remote sensing is that you have the historical data as well. So you guys can always pull back from that, correct?
Yeah. So yes, one of the big advantages of satellite data is that they are always in the sky, always collecting data. Where, in-field sensors, they're only collecting data when they are out there and installed properly and the data is transmitting properly and all of that thing. So satellites are always getting data. So that's one of the advantages that we have is that no matter when we start talking to a customer, we can actually have a full data set. So if we come across somebody in July and they want to get on board, we can actually go back and start that season at planting date and give you the data all the way through the whole season. It doesn't matter when we get started. We can also have the advantage of retrospective. So if we get to the end of the season and maybe yield isn't quite what was expected and we're trying to figure out what was going on, we can go back and reproduce that season and help understand if water was a factor there, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe we irrigated fine and we need to look at something else. Was it an application? Was it the hybrid performance? So we can help with identifying post-season, maybe what happened during that season.
So it doesn't necessarily matter when somebody hops on for the end of season looking back, right?
Yep. So we can get data anytime from today back to 5 years, 27, maybe even back to 2017. So we have a lot of historical information that we can pull from as well.
Well, thank you, Jesse. This was great, and it's always great to talk with you and see what you guys have going on, and hopefully 2025 is impactful for you guys.
Yeah, thanks for thinking about Nave and letting us highlight what we're doing.
If people are interested, where can they go?
Yeah, so our website is just naveanalytics.com. You can get information there. There's a contact us page that gets you right to me because we are a small team, so you still get right to me.
Awesome. I always love that. Are you guys doing any trials, or can people request a demo and have somebody walk you through it?
Yep, absolutely. So we have a demo account, so we can demo the platform. We can share the demo credentials. You can get in there and feel it, see what it's like. But yeah, we can certainly, if you're interested, reach out. We are a small, approachable team. Happy to talk to anybody. Would love to give you more information.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're just getting started.